This was our biggest video of 2024. 50 strangers, 2 days of shooting, a big budget, and a lot on the line. And it turned out to be one of our best pieces we've ever made. I wanna break down how we did it, and I'm gonna talk to the team about how we put this all together.
We asked random people what's their biggest issue while sleeping.
I get hot.
Too hot.
Too hot.
Too hot.
Too hot. Too hot. Too hot. Too hot.
What do you hate about your current bedding?
They don't feel comfortable. Just too heavy.
Sometimes it might be a little bit rough, and sometimes it's a little itchy. It's too hot.
It's not fluffy enough.
What do you look for when shopping for bedding?
Something that helps keep me cool. Something softer. Something that's smooth.
The softer it is, the better.
Breathable and stylish.
What kind of sheets do you currently sleep on?
Cotton.
Cotton.
Cotton?
Cotton. Always cotton.
But how will cotton stack up against Buffy in our blind test?
It's making me itchy. I feel like it's just super rough.
This one feel a little
Stiff.
These feel like just paper towels. I don't like these. I like these.
I feel like the one in my right hand here would actually be cooler.
This one definitely feels better on my skin, I would say.
This one feels cooler than this one does.
How does Buffy feel?
Oh, yeah.
Comfortable.
Oh, this is nice.
I like this.
No itchy, no scratchy.
Oh, it's such a really nice, soft feel to it.
Better than all the hotels I have stayed in.
Would you choose Buffy over your standard bedding?
I would definitely choose this over my current bedding.
I would totally choose these sheets over my current sheets.
It's a lot cooler than my comforter at home.
This is better than my duvet cover at home.
This one is much nicer, much lighter. I would definitely prefer this to what I currently have.
Try for 7 nights free at buffy.co.
We were inspired by the YouTube videos from the channel Cut. They do a lot of videos about asking strangers a question. We wanted to figure out how we could take that same concept and then place that into performance marketing. All right, we've got Sabina here, creative strategist at Goodo. You're the one behind the camera asking all the questions. What I think is really hard about the shoot is that you don't know what people are gonna say. So talk me through kind of when you first got in there, first talent, you had all of these ideas or questions prepped. How was it, like, how did you feel when you first started asking questions?
Well, before the talent even arrived, I was definitely feeling overwhelmed because, again, I can't really plan what people are gonna say, unlike the other shoots where I give them a script. This one is just like, I hope for the best. I hope they have good answers. But luckily, the first talent was super easy. She was energetic. She gave great vibes. And the questions kind of went along great and went as planned. But there was definitely some that were harder to kind of bring out their personalities. And that was a little bit more on the harder side. I kind of had to kind of relate to them, show my personality a little bit, get them comfortable enough to give me something, and kind of reframe words, reframe the question on how their language speaks, not exactly how I had the question written down. So yeah, I think that was probably one of the harder things and what I was nervous for. So there's definitely a little workaround in the moment, figuring it out as I go.
Yeah, I feel like we usually go into shoots very planned. Everything is super planned. We did have it planned, but it was different in the sense that the hope was to get great reactions and you just didn't know like where things were gonna flow or go. When you were actually shooting it, did you have moments where you're like, oh, that's a good line? Or like, how did you like think about like the end edit when you were shooting it? Like as like in that moment, were you thinking like, oh, I could piece this person together with this person? Like how were you thinking about it as the 2 days were like kind of progressing?
I was definitely looking for the golden nuggets, the one-liners. And so every single time a talent would come in and I would try and form a question or have a conversation with them to get at least one liner from them. So that way I'm like, okay, this person at least has one good thing. The editors can use this. I think having one-liners, getting those good nuggets was the biggest piece for me.
All right, the logistics was very hard. We had to coordinate 50 different strangers over 2 days of shooting. 50 different time slots is a lot. In terms of getting people who were available, we already have a big pool of talent from the actors that we already use in other ads. So we did a big email blast to everybody that we have and see if they were available. We also used the platform Backstage to do actor call for the same thing. And then we also were in local Facebook groups to see if we could get any other talent that weren't on our own talent directory or Backstage. Luckily, we had a lot of interest, so then we were able to sift through who we wanted on camera, and that allowed us to have a lot of control and make sure that we had a lot of diversity of people. But even if you have 50 people that you really want, you still have to coordinate the timing because they all have to show up, drive there. It's just a lot of time to like actually coordinate all of that, but we made it work. Because this was a big shoot, we knew that we needed lighting and sound to be on point. So we brought on a lighting person, Mike Asel, and we brought on a sound person, Tara Munoz. Devin, our producer, was about a week into his job, and he was the one that was able to kind of help us bring those people into the fold for this production. We got Devin, the producer. You had just joined the week before. It was chaos. I was like, remember when I offered you the job?
Yeah.
And I was like, I need you, like, can you start ASAP tomorrow because we have this big shoot?
Yeah.
Talk me through a little bit about when you first came on. We needed a lighting person, we needed a sound person. Talk a little bit about like your experience with Mike and Tara and like how you were able to bring them on and like your experience just knowing them kind of in the industry here in Seattle and then how you brought them on.
Yeah. I thought for you to hire me at that time, I thought it was like you hired the perfect person, in my opinion. And the fact that you needed the extra help for like crew and you almost needed the resources that I got hired on to with for like contacts. I was super happy. And then anyone in the industry that gets hired on, like they love like someone hitting them up like, hey, can you work this? So I was stoked that you asked me. And then I was also stoked to ask them because then they're like, oh, I'm getting work.
Yep.
And then I've never asked them for like work. So I was stoked all around hiring Mike as gaffer. So years, like over 10 years experience in Seattle gaffing. And then Tara has like over 20 years on sound. So that just like get the most experienced people in the city to run that so we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And then me in my first week, like the biggest shoot on a psych wall. I've never shot on a psych wall. And that was just incredible first week.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm really stoked.
So talk us through like morning of, we get there, we're like loading in, like talk a little bit about what it was like. We were setting up the lights. It was mainly setup of lights first. That was the big thing. Walk us through a little bit about like the whole scrim, everything that we're like putting together. How did we kind of set the lights when we got in there?
Yeah, we got in and looked at the psych wall and it was kind of low lit. It wasn't the brightest, but we knew we had Mike with like a whole van full of stuff. But we also knew what we were shooting and what we were renting from the studio. So Mike kind of knew what he was bringing in, and then we had to figure out positioning. So we positioned the bed, then Sabine and Lauren, and then Chloe and her husband Julian was also working on the bed. But that let Mike and I figure out, okay, bed's going here. We want to put the key light here, but he actually made it a book light, which was really cool because we had a 12 by 12 silk fabric, which was a quarter silk to really diffuse that. And then that lit the bed. And then we had another book light to light the interview that he flagged off. So like the interview was a different lighting than the bed light behind the interview. Because as they turned around, they're like, surprise, there's a bed behind you. Then it just lit differently. That was the plan going in, light the interview and then light the bed.
Yeah, and I think that was the hard part about it, was that each talent had just a small amount of time. So we really needed to be able to have the two setups. Like you weren't able to move lighting around. So it needed to be set it and forget it and get it right. And there might have been some minor adjustments based on a person and like their height and stuff. But for the most part, it was like, we need two big setups, and the space was tight. It was tighter than we thought. Because remember, we also were gonna we had another light setup that we were going to do, but then we ended up like just not doing it, and we just had that whole silk. We had that grid on it though, so that it didn't spill into the interview setup, which was nice. But then we had a 3 camera setup. Talk about that. We had A, B, and then a C cam. How did we kind of use those cameras?
Yeah, that was really cool. And it saved a lot of time from taking off a camera to get the B-roll on the bed. But 3 camera was actually really smart to have 2 on the interview, front and then
Side
shot,
45.
right?
Yeah.
And then those were on sticks. The third camera was on standby until the surprise reveal of the bed, and that was really cool because they turned around, surprise reveal, and then the main videographer jumped around on the third, which was on a gimbal, and just kind of floated with the talent as they got in the bed.
Yep.
It was just really good flow, saved a lot of time then like taking out the tripod, figure out how we're gonna handheld. So that.
And we were able to keep recording on the A camera. So like what was nice was that we had them stand up, we moved the stool away.
Yes.
And then so you had this wide shot, and then you had the C camera, the one on the gimbal, to be off to the side and get some close-ups. So anytime we were getting a reaction on the bed, we could cut between wide shot, close-up shot, or if we were in the interview setup, we could go front shot or side, like that 45 angle. So we had always a 2-camera setup for whatever the scene was. And I think that was, really like awesome. Now knowing what we did, if we were to do that again, what would you do differently? Like, how would you set it up differently, or how would you prep differently?
Yeah, I would do like a lighting day before, like
Yeah.
a pre-light day, a pre-lit day, and then build the bed before, because we got in at 6 a.m. All hands
Dude.
like going. Everyone's like, I'm new to the team trying to meet people. And Julie's like, yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah.
That was hard, not having walked in the space. I think I wish that I at least had gone in there just to see, because it was a psych wall, but it's on pictures. It's so hard to know what's the depth of that, because it's an infinity wall, right?
Yeah.
So it feels like, you can get dimensions, but it's just a different feel completely, depending on how it curves, the curvature of the wall. But yeah, pre-light day.
And the space behind it too, we didn't know. There wasn't much space behind the whole white psych wall.
Yeah, it was pretty
So
much
it's like,
up against it. Yeah.
But besides that, what would I do differently on the shoot itself? I thought it went really smooth. I was impressed as like my first week. And then though looking back, I would run the third camera also, just for more B-roll. And then there's just one camera not doing anything for B-roll. But I mean, if we had space, might as well run it. And I think we had a lot of cards on us.
So you would say you would have taken that, like, would you take that one off of it? Or, because it was like pointed in a 45-degree angle.
It was just a zoom lens, so I would just like loosen the tripod head and just follow with the zoom. Yeah, just like
Just have something.
Yeah, something. So the editors have one more angle to play with. But everything else, I mean, I wouldn't do anything else different.
I think it was smooth.
It was great. I was like very impressed, and it turned out edits were really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Morning of, we got to this location. We were able to build the bed, get everything steamed, set up all of the lighting. There was 3 cameras. There was a lot to set up in the morning, but we got everything set up. It took a team effort, but we did, and we were able to start on time. As the day went on, we got more and more comfortable and confident with talking with talent and making sure we were asking them the right questions and getting the right responses that we knew would create a really great ad. And it was really special when you started to get a bunch of these sound bites. You just knew in the moment, like, hey, there's something special here. And that was exciting, and again, gave us more momentum and confidence as the day went on. What do you think was the hardest part about the 2 days of shooting?
Like the shooting itself?
Yeah, like, obviously there's moments of like, okay, I have to kind of extract things, but like, when you think about overall, was it just the timing of like getting everybody through? Like, what do you feel like was like one of the bigger challenges of the actual like overall shoot for you?
I think the whole time when I was shooting and quote unquote interviewing people, I was just hoping for the best and being like, is this actually gonna work? Because when I plan shoots on like a regular basis, I have the script, I have the visuals that I want, I have the props that I need. And for this, it was kind of just, okay, I have these questions and hopefully it turns out to be a good video. Hopefully people like the product that we're interviewing.
You're right, we spent so much time building the right environment, but we still didn't know like how it was gonna go. The challenge for me, or the thing that I think was hard, was maintaining that same energy throughout the day and then even into the second day, because it was just like it was like every 15 minutes there was a new person coming in.
Yeah.
And you're asking like the same questions. It
Had
was
a lot of caffeine.
Yeah, a lot of caffeine. That was, I think, like really hard to keep things fresh.
Yeah.
And you really still had to be on your toes. Like literally each person coming in was like a wild card.
Yeah.
Like they were like really crazy and like super like extroverted, or some of them were more muted, a little bit more introverted. How did you kind of maintain like your composure like throughout the day? Or do you feel like that was actually like kind of hard to do? Because I mean, I was there. You were the one directing it, so I kind of stepped in a few times.
Yeah, no, it was definitely hard. That was one of the harder things for me. And a lot of caffeine. Also, just every single time a person would sit down on the chair, I would be like, okay, I just have to be so focused so that way I have something actively listening to every single person that sits in that chair. So that way, if they are a little muted or they are a little shy, but they're like, oh, my husband's sweaty, or they just give me some piece of, like a little piece of their life, I can take that piece and connect it back to the story and be like, okay, well, tell me more about your husband. Like, does he have issues sleeping? And kind of really turning on my active listening.
Yeah. You definitely had to listen, because if they weren't giving you something, but they gave you like, I don't know, like a little hint into something else, being able to like get there and like ask those questions and really open up a response is huge. Let's say we do this again. What would you do differently now that you've done everything, even from like finishing the edit, like it's done? What would you do differently, or how would you kind of maybe prepare differently now that you have this kind of experience?
That's a loaded question. I think just having more confidence in myself, because I think, I mean, this was one of the biggest shoots that I've ever directed.
Yeah. I think it was our biggest shoot period.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And so it was kind of like a pressure but no pressure kind of thing.
There was a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I was just so nervous and wanted to do good that by the second day, I was okay, warmed up, I felt confident, and that was great. But for the first few talent, the first half of the first day, I was kind of iffy and still doubting myself, like, oh, am I still doing a good job? Like, I don't know if I am really getting those nuggets. Are those golden nuggets even good? Yeah, so definitely having more confidence in myself. And I would say another thing is when I write the questions, kind of expanding on that and being like, okay, well, what kind of answers would people give me? And so how can I reword those questions into other people's languages and just fit everyone's.
That is such a good point about being prepared for like what you can't anticipate. I think we were really focused on questions, answers, what would the answers be, but we didn't really think about how variable those answers would be, or even just how people are like on camera. There's, of course, you're gonna have 50 people. There's gonna be a ton of different vibes. Each person's very different. And I think being more prepared for that could make it maybe a lot easier going into like the next time. But I think overall, we did a good enough job to create an environment to extract like the most like one-liners, things like that. What was it like when you saw kind of the edit, when you've kind of started to see it finally come together? What was that like for you as somebody who was working on it? You're stressing out, you're doing all this, because like even in the shoot, it's like you're like, okay, we got these good lines, but the edit still has to hit. The edit still has to like land to make that concept actually work. What was it like for you to actually finally see that first piece of work like really come together for you?
Definitely really cool. I think when in person, when I heard those one-liners, the golden nuggets, I was thinking to myself, oh, I mean, right now in person they sound good, but maybe over camera and once they're in an edit, they won't be good and it won't hit as well. So kind of seeing everyone just in one place, in one video, and all the talent having their little pieces, I think was really where the magic started happening. And then the editors were amazing. All of the edits were what I envisioned. And when I gave the feedback. It was again, like they read my mind on what I wanted. So I think working with editors that hear what I say made it really easy. But it definitely was really cool because again, like when I go into planned shoots, I kind of know what the end video is gonna look like. But for this, I was kind of like, here's all the footage, like good luck.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a wow moment when I first saw the first draft even.
Yeah, even the first draft, like obviously there was things we wanted to work, but it was like, ooh, this, like knowing that it hit was like great. It wasn't like, oh, maybe like we could make this work. And that was like, to me, it was like a huge, sense of relief. Yeah. At the end of the day, you've got all this great footage, but you do have to edit all the 2 days worth of footage. That's a lot of, it was like a terabyte of footage. It was so much footage. 3 cameras, had to sync all of the sound. It was a ton, but our editors, Adrian and Damien, did a phenomenal job. And what's really hard about this style of content is that you have to wade through so much dead space to get those sound bites and then place those sound bites together to be very impactful, speedy, punchy, and line up in a way that would really hit. And this is not something that you can just plan, right? Like you can't just plan out what people are going to say or how the edit's going to be. It really comes, it's a really messy process, and it comes from pulling it out from so much footage. And they did a really great job, but it did take a lot of work to do. And in my opinion, I think editing this video was probably the hardest job just because you had to have so much decision making across hours of footage to find the right sound bites and when to place those sound bites to make an impactful ad. So shout out to Adrian and Damon, they did a great job. Beyond just the creation of the original batch of content, the beautiful part about doing a production like this was that we baked in the fact that we knew we were going to do many different iterations and optimizations. So as we were going to get data back, we knew that we had a lot more content to work off of, so we could use the data, the feedback to say, hey, is this working or not working, and then improve it. And we had a lot more responses, sound bites, other B-roll footage that we could then splice up, cut up, and make additional new ads or variations of the ones that we had originally created. I think that's the power of doing a bigger shoot like this and where you can get the most bang for your buck or value out of a production, because it is scary to put a lot of money into something that you don't know is going to work or not. But if you do enough planning where you actually think about life after the ads are published and you can make sure that you have a lot of content and options, then you can make changes and optimize over a long period of time. And that's where you're gonna actually extract the most value out of all of this content. And I think that's where we were able to get a lot from this shoot. When I originally thought about this video and started to film the BTS of it, I thought I was gonna have a lot more, but if I'm being honest, I was nervous during this shoot. And so I didn't have as much BTS as I thought I would, but now I am hoping that in the future shoots, we can get more BTS and we can break down things like talking with the team and using them to kind of understand their perspective on shoots and how they're coming up with ad ideas. Overall, this was an amazing shoot. We're really, really excited about how it turned out. And we really hope to do interesting, amazing ideas in the future in this new year. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought about this kind of format, talking with team members, and make sure to subscribe, like, we've got a bunch of content coming out, and that's it. All right, peace.